Okay, folks, just going to run through my forecast for what I think will happen this week and also run back on the forecast from last week and see how that one played out. Now, there's a few things to cover off in the last week of price action. I posted the forecast when we were around here, price action wise. Now, the dip down into these areas didn't quite go as deep as I was expecting, but it did get into these areas, which was something I'd flagged. That played out and the price pushed forward. Um, Question is, was there an opportunity for a long here? Yes, there was. To me, at that point, like I said in the forecast previously, it was a little risky. But full disclosure, when I've been reflecting on the last 3 months of price action, I've tried to really impose my view of a bearish turn or a bearish market onto something that has been completely bullish. It's more just my disbelief in terms of when we zoom out here, it's quite clear that it's a bullish market. There's no there's no bearish signals there, at least very few until last week. So that's an example of why imposing your own thoughts on the market doesn't get you anywhere. So I probably should have leveraged that because I had the bullish momentum behind me. However, I didn't. So the price did move up. I was expecting more of a reaction around here, as we pointed out last time, and then for the price to come back down, back into this area, ideally back down into this area to show a proper regression. Now, what I wasn't expecting was the price to reach the all-time high. Now, I don't know how significant this is going to be at this stage, but this superseded this as the all-time high, only by a few pips, but time will tell in terms of how significant that is. Now, what I didn't do was actually leverage this effectively. So this was a mistrade for me. This should have been a short from the all-time high, given the fact that I had a slightly bearish angle anyway, and that this is much more of a, even if you wanted to see it as a bullish consolidation, there's ample opportunities to be able to take the short off the all-time high here. So, even if I had taken it more conservatively, up here somewhere, and then managed to take the short, covering my gaps up here, and and went down. There were reasonable trade setups here in terms of where I could have gone, in terms of where my belief was in terms of the short. However, I've missed it, so that's that. My rule is I don't trade Mondays and Fridays due to my past data, and you can see here that I did take a trade on the Friday, and I did get burnt for it. So if you need another example, follow the own rules that you set yourself. Now, as the price has gone into this week, really what we're looking at is much more of an impulsive move down on Friday and then another impulsive move down and consolidation. So for me, this is quite interesting, right? We had this zone that was left on its, really large drive up. And this price coming into here is no surprise, and we've had the reaction. Now, as we are on Monday, pre-US Open, I'm expecting more volatility, and I'm also expecting some form of retracement before then dropping lower. In my opinion, I'm still expecting that we'll get to here in terms of the price traveling down and carrying that more bearish momentum. Now, this being said, and this orange area is going to make more sense in 1 second when I flick up to the daily, but if I were to play the same sort of trade as I arguably missed down here, I could be looking at this zone, right? But if I were to be looking at taking the position, I just don't think that the risk reward is there for me, because if I'm taking along from here, I'm seeing it as a base. It's not ideal in terms of being able to get a decent position out of this. You may be looking 3 or 4 hour at a high probability. Ideally, yeah, if it came down and came up to here, then you got 8, and then up to towards the top is 12. But for me, I just think that the trade in itself is a bit risky, but it's something that I need to be aware of, given that I'm expecting it to go bearish. Now, what I'm thinking in terms of the week as a whole is, if we flick up onto the daily, I'm now looking at this overall piece as largely a bullish consolidation, right? So that could be forming itself to go much higher. Now, if we take a look at the ranges, and even if we were looking at this as the bottom of the range and not this, but this is where I'd hope that it would get to if we're showing signs of getting to a more bearish nature. But even just taking a look at this as a piece, we can see that on the way down from the all-time high, in terms of when the price was on its last bearish move, came back up and it retraced up to here, right? In terms of what we're looking at in terms of that retracement gap, and if we come down to a similar area here, we're looking at much the same retracement that would align in this orange zone. And we can see on the daily that there's quite an obvious place where this could come back up to. So if we look at back onto the 4 hour, that's where I've got this orange zone marked in, which is ironically the zone that I misread when I took the trade on the Friday. So I'm not set on this because, again, we've got the US Open and it's always trickier to figure out exactly what's going to happen there. But even if it were a short, something along these lines into this zone here, it's still a decent 8R trade. And if I were to sort of be backing it to come back down and using this as the foundational base of the drive, even if it were to go even more bullish, then this setup would come down to around this area for me, which should be a 12R trade. And should it play out to the exact areas that I think that it would be the 15R and then a 22R. However, as I've just said, I'm imposing much more of a bearish viewpoint on this. And I felt that that was backed up in the last forecast because we saw the lower highs here. We had a rebound here, price coming down here. And the retracement here was expected. So it'll be interesting to see how significant this was, or whether this more aggressive nature of coming down into the bears will be supported on this daily structure in terms of us being able to come up here, react to this, come down to a minimum of here, and hopefully down into here to show much more of a correction in the market. Either way, I'm not going to be taking the trades today because, like I said, I don't trade Monday to Fridays, and I'm not going to allow this lapse to be the start of slipping. So that's it. I'd be keen to see what you managed to capitalize on or missed last week and what you're looking for this week too.